All right, are you guys ready to get started? So my name is Stevie Twining and I work with Zeitgeist. You'll see the big bus bike walk image right on your screen here. And this event is part of Bus Bike Walk, which is an annual initiative that Zeitgeist puts on to encourage multimodal transportation, non-car transportation, and general enjoyment of the outdoors and getting people involved in things like transportation and infrastructure conversations in our area. So today we have Jordan Sundberg from Tin Cup Design, and we're partnering with the Duluth Art Institute. And I will pass it along to them.
Well, hi, my name is Jordan Sundberg, and I am a wife and a mom to a 6-year-old girl named Celia and a 3-year-old girl named Tova. I'm a local illustration artist, and I create a lot of my work in the method called digital collage. My business is called Tin Cup Design, and I grew up in the woods not far from here in a little place called Twig. Maybe you've been there. And now I've lived in the hillside for the past 13 or so years, growing strong legs from walking up and down these avenues. And like many of you, I love Duluth, and I love that big, beautiful lake and all of the skiing and biking, trails and hiking and all of the things that we get to enjoy in this beautiful place. If you're familiar with the art I've made or am making, you'll see a lot of it is inspired by life in Duluth, because Duluth, I believe, easily proves one of my core beliefs. And I want to start with this because the rest of what we'll talk about today flows from this very important beginning point. I see life through this lens. I believe we live in a world that is bathed in beauty, meaning beauty is everywhere, in everyone. And there is not a place we can go where beauty is not. And I've come to expect I will experience beauty all the time. And I actually really love that what we're talking about today is being inspired by beauty or art while we bus, bike, or walk. Because yes, there will always be those sweeping views of Lake Superior that we love, and the sunrises and the sunsets and beautiful Inger Tower on the giant hill and the cute little stream coming through and the waterfall, all those things that we love about our city that are so beautiful. But if what I am saying is true, that our everyday world is saturated with beauty, then we should be able to see it at the bus stop, or on the 4th Street bike lane, or walking across a parking lot, any sidewalk and alley across this whole city. I am convinced that what this comes down to is not just taking in amazing views and vistas that we all love to be inspired or to juice our creativity, but that this comes down to becoming the kind of people who can see beauty everywhere and in complete ordinary. I think we're invited into a practice of noticing. And this became much, much more real for me when we had our first daughter, Celia, 6.5 years ago. And as some of you with kids know, you know that babies shrink your worlds. You slow down everything. Routines become the most important part of the day. And it sometimes feels mundane. The same spaces, same schedules, day after day. And especially when little kids learn how to walk on their own, a walk around the block can take 45 minutes because we got to touch the worms and pick up sticks and take shoes off and put shoes on and find out what it's like to step in the puddle or the mud. And sometimes I would feel bored and restless, but other times I would give myself to this slow pace and I would notice the world with her. And 2 things started happening to me as I did more and more of this. First, in the spiritual sense, as I slowed down more and gave myself to things like watching ants skitter across the sidewalk, or a feather blowing in the grass, or even the way that the afternoon light would hit a stack of dirty dishes, I felt a closeness with God. And I would describe that as a sense of being connected to something bigger and hopeful, like a reality outside of myself. And number two, each time I gave myself to noticing the ordinary, just the beauty that was in it, there would be a thought in my head that if I wanted to, I could see more. It was a sense of invitation. So as I experimented with that, sure enough, I saw it more and more. A day wouldn't pass without seeing beauty or inspiration or art, because it was 100% quietly accessible. And I believe this, even when you're busy with 2 kids or 2 jobs, or if you live in an apartment with no green space. And I think this is on purpose. I think this is a way for us to know that we are loved and cared for, and to know that creativity is plentiful if we can see it. How this has played out for me in my work is in a few different ways. The biggest is that it's grown a trust in me that inspiration and creativity are always available. I don't believe anymore that I'm going to run out of ideas or that I'm going to run out of creativity. I don't believe in striving to produce or make something happen, because I feel small now. I feel like I am in a space in a world where there is something much bigger happening than my own little productive life. I do believe I have to participate, and I have to do my work and train my muscles, but I trust that there is a well of inspiration and beauty so much bigger than me, and that it's always available to tap into. It's also helped me to surrender to being a mom of 2 little kids. I only have space in my week to work about a day and a half each week, and I can mostly happily go along with this, because what I'm finding out is that the art and inspiration don't just happen on that day and a half, that actually my whole week is surrounded by it. And I can see it in my girls. I can see it outside our windows. I can see it on our walks. And my life with them is full of the same beauty that happens the day and a half a week at my desk. And I'm not saying that there aren't days where I'm not antsy to be working on an idea, or my day and a half ends and I wish I had maybe a half more day. But I'm learning I can be okay with this. And there are times that I feel stuck, that I have a hard time connecting to that well. And on those days, I go for walks, I slow down, I pay attention and notice. I'm sensitive to what catches my eye. I listen, I wait. And sometimes I find myself seeing things that light up my insides, probably like you guys do on your walks. And I can't get them out of my head, these pictures and ideas. And I find myself imagining a new way to interpret them. And this is often where my prints come from. And I thought it would be helpful to show a few of those, and maybe some stories behind them on how some of these were inspired on walks or bike rides, or just being in and around our city. Here you go. So the first here is a print called Birch Loom. And this was inspired one day by walking on Skyline, not far from our house, where there is a stand of birch trees with the lake behind it. And I always loved trees, and these birch trees, I love the lines and the colors and the way that they stand together. And on this particular day, there was an oar boat just slinking behind these trees. This is just below the trees behind a neighbor's house, similar to this. And as I watched it and just let myself enjoy it and be curious about it, I started imagining how it looked like a weaver's loom weaving in between the trees. And I couldn't get the picture in my head. So I went home and I started working on it and created this print. This is a recent print I called A Walk in the Woods. And this is inspired by many, many walks in the park near our house, which is Chestnut, which many of you might love and enjoy. And there are so many parts of this park where there's beautiful stacks of water and rocks and a little bit of dirt, and then these tree trunks with light coming through that show different colors and spaces. And I was kind of overwhelmed with gratitude that we have access to be walking among this when actual spot in Chester that inspired it, with the rocks and the layers and the tilted trees. This is a print I made a bunch of years ago of Portland Square. It's an old city park in Duluth down on 4th Street and 11th Avenue East. And often I would walk to the co-op, still do sometimes from our house, and would always walk through Portland Square and loved that it was just like an urban blend of people and a little bit of nature and commuters and kids playing in the fountain and on the playground. And just felt grateful again and loved it and decided to create my own simple version of it. This is a print called First Light that I made a couple of years ago. And this is one of those prints of, you know, the big view that we all love. But actually all credit to this goes to my husband, because this is a sunrise print. And he's the one who gets up at 4:35 in the morning when I don't want to be up at all. And he's disciplined and driven and gets on his bike and gets to see things like this because he's up so early. And he bikes a lot in Piedmont, where this view you can see there. And he would often bike there and watch the sunrise come up and sometimes snap pictures and send them to me. And then he started asking me to make a print of it. This is one of the pictures he sent. And I was a little reluctant at first because, you know, I don't like being up that early, but I agreed that it was beautiful and loved how the morning light in Duluth comes up over the lake and pushes away dark on both ends. And I also loved how some of the city shows a light, stars way up in the darkness still yet to be pushed away. This is a print called Brighton Beach, another place in Duluth that many of us love. I love in the summer how sun, like just before sunset, the sky turns a pinkish color sometimes over the lake. It's one of my favorite, I don't know, it just feels so good to be at the lake on the nights. And Brighton Beach is such a special place too. This is Brighton Beach, as you guys might remember and know. Yeah, so I have many more prints like that. And there's a story like that behind each one. A walk or a bike ride or just sitting watching from our porch. And I have to say that part of my thinking behind making these prints is a hope to connect people and folks with the beauty around us. I hope that when people bring these prints home, that it kind of chimes gratitude inside of them, or maybe we're collectively growing gratitude for this place that we live, remembering the beauty that's all around us. And often I try to illustrate places in Duluth or other places in the state that are our favorite spots, because I know that we are tapping into something really wonderful in these places. And one of the reasons we love it so much is that we can experience the beauty there. And so my hope is that taking a print home will keep us connected to that. And as I said, some of these prints are those sweeping views of Lake Superior, or those big idea beauty scenes that I mentioned before. But I want to remind us again that that's just the tip of the iceberg. And there'll be many days when we can't get down to the lake, or on our favorite trail, or up on our favorite vista overlooking it all. But we do, on those days, still have to go to work, or take the bus, or go to the grocery store, or walk the dog. And my hope is that I would like to pass along to you that same invitation to be inspired in the ordinary and cared for by beauty in everyday scenarios. So I thought I'd put together some tips for our work in participating with engaging in everyday beauty. Here is the first one. Oh, shoot. Oh, here we go. Slow down on purpose. Have a baby, or get a slow dog, or just put away your phone. Build intentional, undistracted time into your schedule to practice noticing. Maybe a lunchtime walk in a new place, going early to the bus stop, taking a longer bike commute, or walking to the store rather than driving. And observe what you see along the way. Slow down. Resist making something happen. Be curious instead. This is both a practice of surrender and wonder. We have to train ourselves to see what is already there, not try to take a good photo or find the perfect composition or the perfect idea. Practice noticing what's around you with curiosity and questions. What catches your eye today? What does that thing make you think of? Why do you like it? While you're riding the bus, how does the light shine through people's hair? How about on bald heads? What does the tread of your shoe look like when it makes a mark on the sidewalk? Follow that hopeful, curious sense and keep looking. We're allowed to play with curiosity again. It's not just for children. 3, try a game when you feel stuck. One of my favorite games to play to stir up some creativity is wherever I'm in, whatever location or setting, I challenge myself to find every color of the rainbow. And it's amazing. Even when you think it can't possibly be, they're usually all there. When I go down to the lake on the pebbly parts of the beach, I do this exercise of finding every color rock. Even the entire beach looks like pinkish, grayish, bluish. They're all there. The green and yellow ones, I have to say, are the hardest to find, but they're always there. So it's fun to hunt and find and be surprised by the beauty. Another exercise, this is inspired, or this was created by a nun named Sister Corita Kent. I love her so much. She headed the art department at Immaculate Heart College in the 50s and 60s. And she would give her students these little pieces of paper you see here. They're called finders, or she called them finders. Little piece of paper with a rectangle cut out of the middle. And it would crop out things and only let you see a little rectangle at a time. And in Corita's words, this allowed for viewing life without being distracted by content. So letting the rectangle decide for you what you get to see. And she would often take her students to busy intersections, have them look through the finders, close up from a distance, and tell them that at a single intersection, there was enough raw material for 16 hours of looking. I love that. limiting what we can see actually sometimes lets us see more. This is another picture of her with a student. And lastly, look back on your day to remember beauty seen. The Jesuits gave us a wonderful exercise and practice called the Examine. Some of you may be familiar with that. And it allows you to look back on your day through a series of questions, noticing important pieces in order to be shaped by your experiences that happened in the day. And we can do a variation of this exercise in regards to noticing beauty. Here are some things and steps you can walk through. You start by walking mentally through your whole day. Like I'm talking about like what it was like to get out of bed, go to the bathroom, get a glass of water, all the steps. And as you go through the day, you name what you're grateful for. And then you let yourself remember, what did I see today that moved me emotionally? Maybe it's something that filled you with joy or sadness or peace. Remember that thing. Ask yourself why you were moved. When was it hard in the day to simply see? When were you distracted and maybe resistant? Why? And then lastly, you can ask for open eyes tomorrow. It helps us connect the whole string of events that happen in the day and see when maybe we couldn't see in the moment. I want to end with a beautiful quote from that same Sister Rita Kent, because that woman was able to find so much beauty in the ordinary, and all of that she transformed into art. And this reminds me of as we bike, bus, and walk in Duluth, to be able to see the ordinary, beautiful inspiration around us and see how that might be transformed in our lives. This is what was said actually about her by a man named Harvey Cox. He said, "The world of signs and sales slogans and plastic containers was not for her an empty wasteland. It was the dough out of which she baked the bread of life. Like a priest, a shaman, a magician, she could pass her hands over the commonest of the everyday, the superficial, the oh so ordinary, and make it a vehicle of the luminous, the only, and the hope-filled." I love that. And I hope it for all of us. And that's all I have for us today.
Thank you so much, Jordan. That was lovely. We have some time if anyone has any questions. We got a little bit of time for that. I'm also going to drop those links that I shared in the chat again for some other bus bike walk things, some other DAI things, and so you can check out more of Jordan's work. If you do have a question, you can put it in chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Jordan, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I think it was your fourth one where you talk about like looking back on your day to just like remember the beauty you've seen. Are there particular ways you do this? Maybe like, do you just like think and reflect, or do you sketch, or do you journal, or does it vary? I'm just kind of curious.
And you mean in just remembering, like ways to?
Yeah, do you like
do
you
that?
just like go through it in your mind, or is there like other ways you do that as well?
Yeah, I think journaling, it is a great place to start. To be honest, I often do it as I'm about to go to sleep. like as a way to, yeah, end my day. So I do it in my mind, and it also is really peaceful, and it helps you kind of go into snooze mode. But journaling is a wonderful, and I could see sketching being really helpful too, to remember. It's a great question.
I see in the chat 2 questions. One is, I'm wondering how you came around discovering your art style. And then the other is, I've seen you mention before that your process is a combo of paper and computer compilation. Can you share how you came upon creating this way? Kind of similar vein of question there.
Yeah. I think as far as my style, it's evolved. I started out doing graphic design, and so that's kind of the perspective I came from, but started realizing that some of the graphic design jobs needed illustration work, and that was so fun for me. And so I kind of would encourage that, or wanted to grow that, and started dabbling in making my own prints. And as I did that, I think a style started emerging as I practiced it more and more. And also, like, I've always been inspired by certain artists like Tove Jansson, and I don't know, some more minimal, oh gosh, on the spot, I can't think of all the people I love. So I draw inspiration from some people who have some really minimal, spare styles too. As far as the process of work I do, yes, it's kind of a confusing process. So it's a collage in that I scan in a whole bunch of materials. So like I'll start out with paper and ink, and I just make washes or scribbles or blobs and shapes that I kind of need, send them in, kind of peel those layers off in Photoshop, and then I layer them like tissue paper. So I love how different colors overlapped, make new colors, and different textures come through, and then they get cut into shapes and layered on top of that. So it ends up being this file on the computer that has like hundreds of layers. I just told someone recently that I wanted a project for a fancy art director who really knew what they were doing on the computer, and I sent him my file, and he called it a hot mess. It was like, oh, it was like hundreds of pieces of tissue paper that he was peeling through on the computer. But that doesn't matter to me. It works for me. And I just love how colors and layers work together so much.
Got a question here. What pulls me in most to your work is the way colors and light/transparencies are used. How do you decide upon the colors for your work?
Oh, thank you for liking that. I do at the beginning of each project create a palette, just like maybe 5 or 6 colors that are kind of on my mind that I'm thinking will work well together. Sometimes those change or grow, but I really love color, and it's an intuitive process for me, I guess. And I don't know what to actually say about that. You'll notice I do it often include a little bit of pink or an orangish red in most of the prints I make, and I just love the little punch of warmth that they give. But the rest of them, I just love trying different colors.
Yeah, it seems like for some of your pieces, like you get the colors kind of from the photo and make them something maybe a little bit more simple, or like a color that you just like more or that fits better. I like that a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Are there any other questions today?
Jordan, actually, this is Liz, and also just because I've talked to you a little bit in the past about this, I think it would be really fun if you shared a little bit about your path to graphic design too, like how you got your start and your journey through college too.
Yeah, sure. So I shared with Liz that I went to college for German writing. I was such a practical person. And I did get an art minor, but by the end of college, I wondered if I should have pursued art full on or ministry. I was like actually torn between the two and I didn't know myself well enough. And I happened to have a couple of uncles who lived in San Francisco, and they were so sweet. And they said, "Come move out and see if you can learn graphic design at some of the great places here in San Francisco." And so I came with portfolio from one semester of graphic design. That was very embarrassing. And I would go into these giant firms who were probably doing the marketing work for these huge companies in the States. And I would show them the ostrich made all from punctuation. Like that was one of my graphic design assignments. And they were kind, but I found out I didn't know anything. And I couldn't afford to live there. And as I was sort of waffling at the same time, I got an email from a pastor back in Duluth from our church, and he had previously been an art director, and he said, "Why don't you come back and you be an intern, I'll teach you some graphic design and you can learn about ministry too," which kind of covered both of the things I had been dreaming of. So I headed down that path and learned a lot about ministry and was just shaped as a young person and learned a lot about graphic design. And I started doing like friends' wedding invitations or small little things, little businesses, and was supposed to actually move to another country to do work with a church. And it all fell through. And then I had quit all my jobs. So I thought, well, people had started paying me a tiny bit to do graphic design. Maybe I could just kind of start a side business. And I started Tin Cup Design that year, which was probably like 2008. And yeah, and then it just kind of slowly grew from there. And at that point, not really realizing that I would most become passionate about illustration work, but was just communicate a lot through design. I think illustration, at the heart of that too, is expressing and communicating a message as well. Yeah, that is the crazy path. But I can still speak German, and that's helpful for me and my grandma, I guess. That was it.
All right. Are there any other questions today?
Thanks for hosting this. It was really fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for being here with me.
We do have one more. There's how did you go about getting your work out there to work with publications or people you really wanted to work with?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I did the uncomfortable thing not long after I started the business of joining a networking group, which felt so awkward and odd to me, but my husband was part of it. He's a chiropractor, and he has helped me a ton. He's like a mind over matter person. He gets things done. He pushes through hard things. He doesn't let his emotions sway him. And so he has at times helped me make steps in directions where I would overthink it. And so I joined his business group where you have to be clear about what you want and what you're doing with your business, and you have to tell people about it. And these sweet people started hiring me to do things for their business. And as they did that, it would grow. They would tell people. And along that way, I started realizing the work that I wanted to be doing. And they helped me move in that direction, connecting me with people and sort of challenging me to take steps until it gave me some momentum. And by the time I was done with that, we had our first daughter, and I things were rolling enough in the direction that I knew was right. But that group actually really helped me a ton. And my husband still helps me a ton. Sometimes he says he's my business manager, and that's not true. Oh man. He does help though.
We've got a lot of comments in the chat with thank yous. Is the best place to find your work on your website?
It is, yep. And you can also find a little bit more other drawings and artwork that I'm doing on Instagram as well.
Awesome. All right, I will share those links one more time in the chat. We've got a couple more Bus Bike Walk events. I mean, a couple more. This is our first Bus Bike Walk event of the month. We're going all the way through to June 5th. So keep your eye out for that. Our next event is on the 12th. It's a talk about the pedestrian plan, upcoming infrastructure decision-making with the Duluth Superior Metropolitan Interstate Council. So if you're interested in that, you could follow one of the links that I'm gonna post here. And then keep your eye out for other events on the Zeitgeist social media. Thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you to Jordan for this amazing talk. I learned a lot. I really liked it. And thanks to Liz and the DAI for partnering with us.
Thank you, Stevie, and thank you, Jordan. That was like just what people needed today, I think.
Oh, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
All right. Everyone have a lovely day.